He looked at me like I was worthless. Just another name on the roster. The boss's son, young, arrogant, and convinced he knew everything, dismissed me in front of the entire team because I couldn't communicate with our international clients. He didn't even ask if I spoke another language. He just assumed. I swallowed the humiliation, packed my things, and walked out silently. But I wasn't mad. I was curious. Because I knew something he didn't. The CEO had personally signed a confidential contract with me, and when he found out what his son had done, well, that office was never the same again. My name is Ethan Reyes, and I've always been the quiet type. Not because I'm shy, but because I like to observe. Watch how people move, how they talk, how they assume. Especially in the corporate world, silence is power. I work or used to work for Vanguard Tech International, a major player in global software solutions. Our headquarters in Berlin was a melting pot of nationalities and cultures. That's why I was hired in the first place. I'm fluent in 7 languages: English, German, French, Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic, and Japanese. It wasn't just a party trick. It was essential to my job. But most people didn't know that. I was hired directly by the CEO, Mr. Adler, after a chance meeting at a tech summit in Geneva. He said he needed someone who could bridge communication gaps in sensitive international deals. Someone discreet, sharp, and loyal. I signed a confidential executive liaison contract, which meant I often worked behind the scenes, reviewing client correspondence, preparing for high-level negotiations, and sometimes even attending them under a different department's name. I never corrected anyone who thought I was just Ethan from data. It helped me stay invisible and effective. But everything changed the day his son joined the company. Damien Adler. Fresh out of business school with a cocky smirk and a last name that got doors open for him before he ever knocked. He strutted in like he owned the place. Technically, one day he might. But respect isn't inherited. It's earned. And Damien had no clue who I was or what I did. To him, I was just another quiet, underperforming office guy with no spine and poor communication skills. He made it his mission to clean house, and I was one of the first to go. The morning it happened felt like any other. I arrived at the office early, as usual. The cleaning crew was still wrapping up, and the aroma of fresh coffee filled the air. I preferred this quiet time before the buzz started. It gave me time to check in with our international inboxes. Clients from Japan, Egypt, and Germany had sent overnight queries that needed careful translation and cultural nuance to handle properly. By 9 a.m., I'd already responded to 3 high-stakes client emails and prepped notes for an upcoming cross-border proposal. But by 9:15, Damien Adler stormed into the bullpen like a hurricane in designer loafers. He clapped his hands loudly. "Morning, everyone. Quick team meeting. Right now. Conference room A." His voice grated on my nerves. It wasn't just loud, it was performative. Everything he did was to prove something. And he clearly had no idea how many quiet professionals in this room were far more competent than he was. I walked in and stood at the back like I always did. "All right," Damien began, pacing. "I've been reviewing team performance, and frankly, I'm not impressed. Too much redundancy, too little initiative." He stopped walking and looked directly at me. "You," he pointed. "What's your name again?" I met his gaze. "Ethan. Reyes." "Right, Ethan. What do you actually do here?" I felt several pairs of eyes shift toward me. I glanced around the room. My supervisor, who knew the truth, stayed quiet. Our eyes met. He looked apologetic, but he wasn't going to say a word. I kept calm. I handle a variety of interdepartmental communications, translation tasks, and client correspondence. "Translation?" Damien scoffed. "Since when do we need translation for email filters and spreadsheets?" I didn't respond. I wasn't supposed to reveal the confidential contract, not unless the CEO gave explicit permission. "I've checked your file. Your department records are thin. You don't report directly to anyone. That's not how I run things. I'm streamlining operations, and you, Ethan, are no longer part of them." A few quiet gasps rippled through the room. I stood still, trying to process the sting of humiliation. "You're firing me?" "Yes," he said, already turning his back. "HR will process the paperwork. Pack your things by noon," and just like that it was done. No warning, no questions, just an uninformed decision by a kid trying to make a name for himself. I walked back to my desk slowly. People avoided eye contact. I didn't blame them. By 10:30, I had packed my things into a cardboard box. My supervisor approached quietly. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I couldn't say anything. It's above my pay grade." "I know," I said simply. As I was about to leave, I took one last look around the office. 7 years of silence, precision, and loyalty, and Damien had thrown it away in under 5 minutes. I stepped outside into the cold Berlin air. I wasn't angry. I was intrigued. Because Damien had no idea what he had just done. And I knew something he didn't. Tomorrow morning, Mr. Adler, the CEO, was flying in from Zurich, and he would ask one question. "Where's Ethan?" The next morning started with chaos. I wasn't there to see it firsthand, but I didn't need to be. I had contacts, people who had worked beside me for years and knew something wasn't right. By 8:10 a.m., Mr. Adler, the CEO himself, walked through the front doors of Vanguard Tech's Berlin office. That alone was unusual. He rarely visited in person unless something major was brewing. No warning, no press, no entourage. He was in the building for less than 5 minutes before asking, "Where's Ethan Reyes?" The receptionist blinked. I believe he was let go yesterday, sir." "But..." Damien handled some restructuring. He said Ethan's position was redundant. My phone buzzed at exactly 8:17 a.m. It was a message from Claudia, a project manager in business development. "The CEO is here. He just asked where you are. I think he's furious." I smirked as I sipped my coffee at the little Turkish cafe down the street from the office. I hadn't even unpacked my box from yesterday. Part of me knew this wasn't the end. The contract I'd signed with Mr. Adler wasn't just a job offer. It was a strategic non-disclosure executive contract. I was technically part of the company's inner circle, something Damien clearly never bothered to read. At 8:25 a.m., the building shook with tension. "Get Damien in here." "Now," Mr. Adler barked as he entered the boardroom. Damien, still half awake and cocky as ever, strolled in. "Morning, Dad." "Don't call me that in here," Mr. Adler snapped. "What the hell happened to Ethan Reyes?" Damien shrugged. "Who? Oh, the quiet guy? Useless. Couldn't even handle a basic email to our Italian partners. I let him go. We don't need dead weight." Mr. Adler leaned forward slowly, placing a file on the table. "Do you know what this is?" Damien glanced at the folder. "A personnel file?" "No," Adler said, voice sharp. "That's your mistake." He flipped it open. "This is Ethan's executive contract, personally signed by me. He wasn't some paper pusher. He was our multilingual liaison for high-level clients. He was the reason our deals with Shogun Systems of Tokyo, Al Kareem Finance in Dubai, and Hesitech in Munich went through without translation errors." Damien blinked. Mr. Adler stood, voice cold. "You fired the linchpin of our international operations because you didn't do your homework." I didn't know," Damien stammered. "Exactly," his father said. "You didn't know. And now you've embarrassed this company and potentially put 3 ongoing international deals at risk." Outside the boardroom, tension ran high. People were whispering. The man who strutted around like a prince had just been humbled, publicly and thoroughly. Meanwhile, I was finishing breakfast when my phone rang. "Unknown number," I answered. "Hello?" "Mr. Reyes," came Mr. Adler's voice, calm but serious. "I apologize for the insult you suffered yesterday. I would like you to return immediately." "I still have the contract," I replied evenly. "And I still value you," he said. "Your desk will be ready in 1 hour, and there's going to be a change in leadership structure. You should be there to witness it." I couldn't help but smile. "I'll be there." I returned at 9:45 a.m. The elevator ride up was surreal. Everyone stared as I walked past, the man who had been fired in silence now returning with the CEO's personal blessing. When I reached my desk, it was spotless. A fresh nameplate waited for me. Ethan Reyes, Executive Liaison to CEO. At 10 o'clock sharp, a company-wide email landed in every inbox. Subject: reorganization of leadership. Effective immediately, Damian Adler will be stepping down from his interim leadership responsibilities and entering an executive mentorship program abroad. Ethan Reyes will resume his duties, reporting directly to me. Let this serve as a reminder: silence should never be mistaken for weakness. M. Adler, CEO. The office erupted. Whispers. Wide eyes. People looking at me like they were seeing me for the first time. And then, as if on cue, Damien passed by my desk. His face was pale. I didn't know," he said quietly, eyes darting. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I simply looked at him and replied, "You never asked." He stood there for a moment, speechless, and then turned and walked away. But that wasn't the end. Later that afternoon, Claudia rushed into my office. "You need to see this," she said, holding up her tablet. My eyes widened. One of our major partners had pulled out of an upcoming deal. Apparently, Damien had tried to renegotiate with them the week before, without realizing the cultural implications of his demands. The fallout had just begun. I sat at my desk, staring at the blinking cursor on my screen. The news of the partner pulling out of the deal was bad, but not beyond repair. I'd spent years building relationships with these clients. They trusted me, not the Adler name, not the company. Me. And now I had to decide whether I still trusted them. Claudia stood in my doorway. "Are we going to lose the whole contract?" I shook my head. "Not if I make a call right now." I picked up the phone and dialed a direct number. It rang once before a familiar voice answered in crisp German. "Reyerson," came the voice of Mr. Hisa, our Munich-based partner. "I was hoping you would call." "I heard about the miscommunication last week," I said calmly. "It wasn't authorized." "I assumed so," he replied. "Your CEO's son was, how do I say, bold but not informed. Are you back in charge?" "I'm back." There was a pause. "Then so is our partnership." I exhaled, relieved. "Danke. I'll send you the revised terms by the end of today." When I hung up, Claudia grinned. "That's one saved." I nodded. 2 more to go. I spent the next several hours making careful, personalized calls in Arabic, Mandarin, and French. Apologies. Clarifications. Reaffirming relationships. Every call felt like piecing together something precious that someone else had smashed. By evening, all 3 major partnerships were back on track. The real work had only just begun, but at least now we had a future again. The next morning, Mr. Adler summoned me to the rooftop terrace, the one he used only for serious conversations. He stood with a cup of coffee, looking out over the Berlin skyline. "You handled it well," he said without turning. "I almost didn't get the chance to," I replied. He sighed. I made a mistake, Ethan. Letting Damien get involved without preparing him. He thought he was ready. I thought so too. He wasn't the problem, I said. Assumptions were. He turned toward me. And you never once broke the confidentiality clause, even when you were fired. I met his eyes, because I still respected what we built. He nodded slowly. I want to promote you, he said. Full executive status. You'll lead a new team, our cultural intelligence division. It's time we stop treating language and diplomacy like side duties. I want it at the core of this company. I took a breath. I accept. He smiled. Good. Also, we're reworking Damien's role. He's leaving for Singapore tomorrow. He'll report to you remotely. I blinked. Wait, I'll be his superior? Yes, Mr. Adler said, sipping his coffee. Let's see if that teaches him humility. A week later, I moved into my new office. Glass walls, a city view. My own team of linguists and negotiators, people like me, often overlooked, now essential. I still remembered that day Damien fired me. How easy it was for him to dismiss what he didn't understand. How satisfying it was to prove, not with anger, but with action, that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's just a calm before a quiet, calculated comeback. Out of nowhere. I shut my young adult fiction book after saying something so ridiculous and ludicrous. After reading young adult novels for 18 years, I can tell with confidence that the events depicted in these books simply do not occur in the real world. Mike is my name. I am merely a typical office worker. My biggest worry these days is my supervisor, with whom I simply don't get along. Hi, Mike. I instructed you to finish this report. But this is your task. Don't back-talk me. It's somewhat like that. Instead of us simply not getting along, it feels more like he is bullying me. Steve is the boss's name. He's in his late 50s, if my memory serves me well. He reportedly has a son that is roughly my age. In my opinion, he is a small man both practically and symbolically, even if he has a respectable job and is purportedly a father. Just so you know, Steve is about 5'3". Since I'm just approximately 5'5", I can't really comment on other people. In any case, Steve's criticism of me every time I show up for work has become a huge source of stress. When I go home, I immediately start watching TV or reading light novels. I've always had a deep affection for fiction. They call it the teenage delusion phase these days, but until middle school, I genuinely thought I was unique, and I never questioned that I would find a special, attractive girlfriend. However, this year marks my 30th birthday. It's obvious that I'm not unique in any way. Just a mediocre one. I think my only regret is that I haven't found a girlfriend yet. The majority of people in their 30s are married or at least have a significant other. I might not even fit that average mold, though, after giving it some more attention. Perhaps it's actually pretty fantastic to be average. This is simply excessive. I tried to escape reality by launching a game app on my phone when I was engrossed in such thoughts. A notification, however, pinging at that moment. I seldom ever receive messages. I looked at the sender and it said Nina. I jumped up at that. Hey, it's been a while, the message read. I apologize for the last-minute request, but would you be able to pose as my boyfriend, Mike? The unexpected material surprised me. I've known Nina since kindergarten, and she resided in a mansion just across from my childhood home. Nina's father, incidentally, is extremely wealthy and a real estate magnate. In other words, the daughter of a CEO, my childhood friend, asked me to pretend to be her lover. Confused, I decided to hear her out. She pleaded for help, and begrudgingly I agreed. A week later, I headed to the train station Nina had specified. Even though I've known her since we were kids, I felt a bit nervous. After all, it's been roughly 11 years since I last saw Nina. When she moved to New York for college, we lost touch. We had a reunion recently, but she couldn't make it due to her busy work schedule. Nina's 30 now. She must have changed a bit in appearance. I thought as I was waiting when I heard, "Mike." I saw a woman energetically waving at me. "Sorry. Did I keep you waiting?" "No, not at all." There she was, transformed from a young girl to a full-grown woman. Nina looked even more beautiful than before, and my nervousness peaked. "You seem nervous, Mike. Is it because I've gotten more attractive?" I'm not nervous. Don't get the wrong idea." The nervousness made me behave strangely. But it's true, Nina had grown up. However, things like her calling my name from afar and running toward me, or her sparkling smile, remained unchanged from when we were kids. I was anxious about how she might have changed, but I genuinely felt happy to see that my childhood friend was still the same in many ways. "Shall we head to my parents' house?" "Yeah." Now, this is where the real challenge begins. I have to play the role of Nina's boyfriend after all. To briefly explain the situation, as I mentioned earlier, Nina's father is in the real estate business. Recently, he seems to have confided in a close business associate, the CEO of another company, saying, "My daughter just can't seem to get a boyfriend." Then the CEO offered, "Why not look among our employees?" And apparently took the initiative. As it turns out, the department head's son was actively seeking a partner for marriage. After exchanging pictures, the young man seemed quite taken with Nina and desperately pleaded for a formal introduction with marriage in mind. That's the story. It's so infuriating when I think about it now. They made this decision without my knowledge. Typical of Dad. Always meddling like that. Nina is puffing out her cheeks, and I couldn't help but give her a smile. It's true, Nina's father has always been overly concerned about his daughter. Anyways, we need to deter this match at all costs. I'm counting on you today. I'll do my best. You see, my role as Nina's boyfriend is to dissuade this prospective groom. Nina was upset that her dad had gone ahead and set up a matchmaking date on his own. However, her dad insisted that if she didn't have a boyfriend, he wanted her to meet the guy at least once, chalking it up to typical parental meddling. Feeling the pressure, Nina spontaneously lied, saying she already had a boyfriend. But when her dad questioned who this boyfriend was, she impulsively blurted out my name. Though her dad was quite suspicious, he relayed to the other guy's family that she was taken and suggested calling off the arranged meeting. But to their surprise, that guy kept insisting on at least one meeting, making it hard for her dad to decline his persistent requests. Concerned that she might be pursued by the suitor in the future, Nina decided the best way to get him to back off was to show him her boyfriend in person. Hence, she came up with this scheme to rope me in. As you've probably figured out by now, I'm about to get dragged into a complete mess. At first, I thought to decline. But then she called and pleaded, "Please, just this once." Over the phone, I felt my cheeks warm up, and I reluctantly agreed. To be honest, even if it's just pretending, the idea of being Nina's boyfriend wasn't all bad, because I had been secretly in love with her for the longest time. But I never had the courage to confess. I was scared of ruining our childhood friendship. And every time I saw the grand mansion she lived in right across from my family home, I couldn't help but feel the stark difference between our worlds. So I gave up on my feelings for Na. "Hey, why did you choose me to pretend to be your boyfriend?" I asked, holding on to a faint hope. Na gazed at the scenery and pondered. I couldn't read her expression. "Just felt like it," she said, flashing me a bright smile. "I guess there's no deeper reason to it," I thought, shrugging. "There's no way Na would have special feelings for someone like me." After that, we entered Nina's lavish mansion. Her dad was inside. "I never would have guessed you two were dating," he commented, his expression a bit stiff. "By the way, He doesn't know that I'm just pretending to be her boyfriend. I need to ensure he doesn't find out. Would it be okay if I greet her? Of course. I think my wife would be pleased as well. With Nina's father's permission, I went in front of the photograph of her mother and greeted her. Nina's mom passed away due to illness right after Nay graduated from high school. I had always known she had health issues, but I was truly shocked when she passed away. She was someone who took care of me since I was young. Whenever I visited their home, I remembered the warm smile of Nina's mom and how she would always welcome me with lots of treats. She was truly a wonderful person. Although I was close to Nina's mother, I hardly spoke to her father. He was often busy with work, and I had a somewhat intimidating impression of him. I've heard that after losing his wife, Nina's dad became extremely protective of his daughter. I wonder what will happen if he finds out I'm just pretending to be her boyfriend. While these thoughts raced through my mind, the doorbell rang. Finally, the date she was supposed to meet had arrived. A wave of tension washed over me. Oddly enough, this date knew that Na would be bringing her boyfriend today. He still wants to persuade Nina even in my presence. I thought, what an arrogant and persistent guy. He must really not know when to give up. I wonder what he looked like. Just then, the man for the matchmaking date and his father entered the room. To my shock, upon seeing the father, my eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Steve? To my surprise, there stood Steve, my boss at the company with whom I often clashed. Mike, why the hell are you here? Steve looked just as taken aback. Could it be that Nina's father is close friends with the CEO of my company? Come to think of it, I had heard that the date was a manager's son, and Steve is a manager. I was completely confounded by this unexpected encounter. No way! You're the boyfriend of this lady? You've got to be kidding, Steve exclaimed, his eyes bulging in disbelief. But then, Na, standing beside me, suddenly grabbed my arm. It's true. Mike is my dear boyfriend, she told Steve with a serious tone and earnest eyes. It must be an act, but her convincing expression made my heart skip a beat. Then Steve's son said, so he's Nina's boyfriend. Glaring at me, his eyes mirrored the condescending look I often received from Steve, making me recoil involuntarily. He had clearly inherited his father's shorter temper. After that, Steve's son began to talk about his own background. Apparently, he worked for a company with a higher income than the one both his father and I worked for, and seemed to have a promising future. It felt like I was the one out of place in the situation. For a moment, I felt disheartened. However, I never let go of my arm. Please reconsider. Mike is my subordinate, but honestly, he's quite useless. I bristled at Steve's words, but Na seemed even more upset. Don't you dare insult my boyfriend. Mike has many wonderful qualities. Na, who had been reserved till then, glared fiercely, leaving Steve and his son taken aback. It seems Na really loves him. Suddenly the son, looking very uncomfortable, said, "Excuse me," and left the house. Hey, wait, Steve called after him. As he did, he turned to me, giving me a warning glance. Remember this. I had a bad feeling about all this. And just then, Na finally let go of my arm. I'm sorry for holding on for so long. Oh, it's okay. Seeing Nina's face turn red made me blush as well. Do you two plan on getting married? Na's father suddenly asked, catching me off guard. Na looked equally unsure about how to respond. Seeing our flustered reactions, Nina's father just said, "Never mind," and shrugged. It was my idea to bring up this matchmaking meeting. I'll apologize to the other party properly. With that, he went into his study. Thanks for playing the role of my boyfriend today. I'll treat you to something next time. Because we couldn't risk being overheard, we stepped outside. After walking for a bit, Nina turned to me and began to express her gratitude. No worries. Well then, Bye for now. Even if it was just for a day, being Nina's boyfriend felt nice. It felt like my long-held crush was momentarily reciprocated, yet there was a lingering sense of regret. Maybe I still do have feelings for Na. I glanced back in the direction Na had gone and shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. The pretend relationship ends here. A few days later at the office, Steve glared at me with fierce eyes. I felt a negative vibe. But to add to my surprise, I received a sudden job transfer notice. To my shock, the new location was in a rural branch. This was essentially a demotion. Hey, Steve, what's the meaning of this? Steve smirked. You embarrassed my son and me the other day. I always thought you weren't suitable for this department, so I took the opportunity to send you where they're short-staffed. With that, he laughed heartily. Apparently, several employees had recently quit at that branch, and they were in dire need of staff. Steve had strongly recommended me for the position, so I was pretty much forced into this demotion. Darn it. Why did this happen to me? No matter how unfair it felt, the decision was irreversible. Some days later, I was using my weekend break to prepare for the move. Even with the relocation allowance, moving expenses really hurt. As I lamented the situation, I ran out of packing tape. Stepping outside to buy more, I noticed a sleek black car parked in front of my old apartment. Wait, that car looks familiar. Oh, that's Nina's family's car. Just when I thought that, Nash stepped out of the back seat of the car, waving with a cheerful, "Hey there." Nah, what are you doing here? Well, I heard some unsettling rumors. So, you're being transferred to the countryside, right, Mike? How did you... Turns out she had received a call from the guy she was supposed to meet for a matchmaking date, who told her with a laugh, "Your boyfriend's getting transferred. Serves him right." Hearing that, she rushed over to see me. I see that guy's a piece of work. Sorry to get you involved in all of this. Why are you apologizing, Mike? It's my fault. I lied about having a boyfriend and dragged you into this. Na bowed her head apologetically. You don't have to be so sorry. Believe it or not, I actually enjoyed playing your boyfriend. Hearing that, Nina's eyes widened, and she gave a big grin. Then she dropped a bombshell. You know, Mike, I've always had feelings for you. I blurted out, "What?" in sheer disbelief. Na blushed at my reaction. Do you remember our middle school reunion the other day? Yeah, but you weren't there, right? I was really disappointed when I didn't see you. Turns out she arrived later in the evening. At that time, because everyone was making me drink, I didn't even notice Nina's presence, and it seems that I missed her chance to approach me. Seeing you so drunk was really something, and I felt a bit sorry for you. But I never imagined that even in that state, I'd find my heart still fluttering for you. I guess I really do still have feelings for you, Mike, Na said with a shy laugh. After that, perhaps due to her feelings of wanting to see me again, she told me that when she was approached for an arranged date, she impulsively lied, saying I was her boyfriend. That's why, when I previously asked her, "Why did you mention my name?" she felt embarrassed. Fearing I'd realize her feelings for me, she quickly looked away and answered, "Just because." Apparently, her face turned beet red at that moment. You know, I think you and my dad have very similar personalities. What? Me and your dad? I was taken aback by her unexpected comment. Well, like how he's always fussing over others. Remember when I had a cold? You brought me ice cream and took care of me. Hearing Nina's story, I did recall such an incident, but I clumsily spilled that ice cream on the floor, causing trouble for Nina's mom. Yet Na cheerfully pointed out that my clumsy side is just like her dad's. The reason Na came today was to propose that I work at her father's place, given the inconvenience she had caused. Being in sales, I had some familiarity with real estate, which aligned with the job. The salary sounded quite appealing, promising a brighter future than my current position. But are you sure? Me working there? It's fine. Actually, I told my dad about our fake relationship. Wait, seriously? However, from what Na shared, her father wasn't really mad about being deceived. Instead, he seemed to feel guilty for neglecting Na's feelings and prematurely arranging a date for her. He also felt bad about causing me trouble, and offering me a job was his idea.
She said, "I'm truly grateful for this offer. If you think I'm a fit, I'd love to work with you."
When I said that, Na gave me a delighted smile. After that, I began working at Nina's father's place. At the same time, I started seeing Na more often, and before we knew it, we were dating. One day, Nina's father asked me, "Are you two officially together now?" "Well, we are seeing each other, yes." "I see. There's no end to the men wanting to date my daughter. Oh boy, what a hassle." Then Nina's father turned to me and said, "If someone comes around again, I might ask you to play her boyfriend again." He said it with a joking tone and grinned. It felt like the first time I saw a smile on Nina's father. Seeing that smile made me believe he had accepted my relationship with Na. Oh yeah, there was this guy named Steve who was trying to get me transferred out. It seems Nina's father mentioned something about it to the CEO. Apparently, that led to Steve being transferred to a branch in a rural place like Nebraska. The CEO, with a slightly frustrated look, responded to Na's father, who jokingly said, "Sorry for poaching your best employee." He then mentioned that he'd make sure Steve got some retraining. Hearing that story lifted a weight off my shoulders. Later on, Nina and I got married. But to be honest, my life story feels like a mess. Being asked to play the part of a boyfriend for the childhood friend of the CEO's daughter, only to find out that her matchmaker's dead dad was the boss I couldn't stand. Then, right when I was about to be transferred out of spite by the boss, my childhood friend turned up at my place. Turns out she had feelings for me all along. I ended up working for her dad's company and eventually marrying her. It sounds like something straight out of a rom-com in a young adult novel. This kind of cliché plot? I bet it wouldn't get any traction. Publishers would surely be in the red with this story. But let me just say it. I'm happy. And marrying my childhood friend is just the best.